All right. So again, hello everyone. Welcome to all who've joined us. Calling in from Central Florida tonight, and are we're actually having a little bit of a family break this weekend. Hopefully, if all goes well. But this is my last duty before we get fully into our weekend. And this was a session that we wanted to have in the evening time, U.S. evening time, so that it would accommodate schedules that for people that can't normally come to these sessions. And so I'm happy to have everyone who's able to attend, and looking forward to it. Laura, if you did you post the uh, or could you post
I just did.
the
Would you like me to
rules?
paste it again?
Oh no, they're here. I see them. Perfect. So,
Lovely.
the what we do for these sessions, it's one speaker at a time, and raise your virtual hand. Although this is a fairly small room tonight, so if it stays small like this, we can be a little bit more relaxed. If you want to put your question in the chat, please use question as a prefix so we catch them all. And let's keep our responses pretty time boxed, but again, smaller group here, so we'll be a little bit more flexible than we are whenever we've got a very large room. But just let's take your turn and wait to be called on by the moderator. And if you have a follow-up question, that's fine. But if someone else has a question, let's keep it to one question follow-up before we move forward. And the rest of the rules are right there. And it is the Joe I thought it was. Hi, Joe. Welcome. And this is what part of the reason we wanted to have these calls at this time as well, to offer friends who are on the other side of the world a more reasonable time to come into the calls. So glad to have you here, Joe. And with that, welcome everybody. And I'm happy to take any questions that anyone has on the budget process as we get started here.
I do have a question, but it's more generalized. It's kind of similar to the ones that Lawrence has been asking in the last few sessions. And it
Sure.
is, can you give us a quick update on where the budget stands as of now? Have any
Sure.
changes been made since the start of these sessions, or things have been reconsidered? How is it going?
Okay, and thank you, Laura. I would say that generally this is moving along in the order and the clip that we expected it would. We started by socializing the process itself and answering questions on the process. And since then, we've now had four committees have presented their materials. That is the product committee, the TSC, the OSC, and the MCC. So there have now been at least one session for four committees, and some of the committees have now had two sessions. So the the goal is once people understood kind of the rules of the process, then we start moving into having each of the committees show the work that they've done to start bringing uh, ideas forward, things that could potentially be funded through the Treasury, and collating those ideas so that the DREPs have an idea of the things that they could vote for in the annual budget process. And so we, as we've done this, we're getting some really good feedback from different places and that's helping us align, what should be in the budget, what the budget itself should even look like, and what it will take to get it over the line once those parts of the process are done. So our next steps, we have Montessori's coming up. So there'll be a few more of these AMA sessions, at least a couple more next week. And then more in December. And the first one in December will actually be a update from Buenos Aires, because there are lots of DREPs who will be there, and we'll be those DREPs while we're there. Some firsthand feedback from them and on what they're thinking of the process, and getting closer to putting the info actions themselves online so that the DREPs can actually have those conversations online. So that's all very exciting, and those are sort of the next steps as we continue to move forward.
Thank you so much. It was actually a very, very sound and complete response. I do have another question. It was right at the tip of my tongue, but I completely forgot now. Oh boy. One second. Let me wait for a little bit as it comes back to me.
No worries, and I'll have Tex raised his hand, so we'll take his question while you pontificate on your own.
Sure. Thanks, Lloyd. So my question, I guess, is going to be a direct follow-up to what you stated here. So if I heard correctly in the vernacular here, I heard governance actions. So I guess the question would be, is there a period of time in which governance actions will be submitted with the intention of not being officially voted on, but voted on to say, yes, we generally agree and would accept this, or no, go back to the drawing board and here's the feedback?
Yeah, we're actually working on the idea of three or four governance actions that can basically ask and answer some questions of the DREPs. So we had a DREP call earlier this week, and some of the DREPs had like the idea of like how many times should a DREP have to vote in a year? Can we come to some kind of a agreement by having an info action at minimum a gov tool conversation, right, in the discussion forum. And so, yes, we're going to start doing. We're planning a few info actions, and then we have some that we absolutely have to do. Like we have the net change limit, so yeah, we have to do an info action for that, and we plan on filing that one very soon, so that the DREPs can determine the amount of money we should pull out in any period of time. So once we have that information, we'll be able to. That actually is it's a precursor to doing any actual budget info action. We have to have that one in place. So, but it's both that and some info actions to let the DREPs kind of guide the way, tell us what they want, don't want.
Thank you.
Sure.
I did remember my question.
All right.
With the Constitutional Convention coming up, we know that the budget is somewhat related and somewhat unrelated to the Constitution itself. In those words, are you expecting to, okay, let me rephrase that because I started off on the wrong foot. Is the budget committee prepared to handle any potential changes they might need to do in the budget itself, depending on the outcomes of the Constitutional Convention and how the delegates are going to vote?
Gotcha. Thank you, Laura. That is a fantastic question and a real important one. The answer is every time any draft has taken, hold at all, I've been reviewing it based, against what we have in our budget process, looking for places that we need to make changes, you know, any kind of pivots that we'd have to take in the process. I do know that the foundation put their own draft out today. I have not reviewed it yet, but that is on my short list of things that I have to do is review the version that they put out versus the processes we're following. Are we constitutional according to all of the current drafts or not? It's an interesting line to have to walk, but this is where we are. We are in the spot where the constitutions we have an interim constitution, and I can tell you with absolute certainty we follow that. But we also have potentially a new constitution on chain very soon. And if that happens, we have to be ready to shift fully to that one under any, immediately.
Absolutely. I mean, this question came up in my mind because recently, actually, it was around 2 or 3 hours ago, I did see a thread on Twitter that it was a community member who put together all of the drafts that have come out so far. And we had like 7 or 8 drafts in total. So I kept thinking it is a load of work. And I understand that's a ton of people working on this together and it's not easy. So thank you for your answer.
Pleasure.
Juan, you have your hand up, please.
Thank you, Laura. And the first of all, I want to, commend the work that you guys are doing, especially Joy. That is amazing how committed you are, and all the work that you have been doing on this process. And yeah, I mean, I just can't imagine how much you're going to enjoy Thanksgiving.
You're right, Juan. It's going to be so nice having some downtime with the family.
Yeah. So my question goes to the upcoming activities in Argentina. So what will be the schedule for the budget committee? And that one thing. The other question has to do with I still have a lack of clarity in terms of how it's going to be managed, the change of value due to the the rise of price for ADA. So we are right.
So, okay, so your first question, both Lawrence and I will be there. We both have responsibilities each day for, various parts of it. Some of that will be acting as as a subject matter expert, just simply, if there's questions from the delegates on the budget, Lawrence and I will be there to answer them. I do have some other roles that it looks like I'll be fulfilling. Yeah, talk about that probably next week, if that continues to move forward. But I've been asked to handle a few things for the event itself, so I am I'm preparing for that should that happen. And but that's basically why we're there. We're there. Obviously, I'm there also for civics because I was part of civics and part of the drafting process. So I'm there for that, and I'm there also to simply lend the knowledge to the DREPs, or the delegates. Actually, sorry, not in this case the DREPs. In this case, it's the delegates who will be making the decisions to whether or not they're going to support the draft of the Constitution as it stands.
Nice. Yes. And as far as the price, the final budget, so it's going to be based on data, but then the change. I mean, the final number is going to be based on. No, we are using we are using more like a labor, what it takes to do for manpower. So yeah, just could you expand on that a little bit so we can, I can understand better?
Sure. Thank you, Juan. Because yeah, that's obviously it's a big question now. We've been, we up until very recently, we were going off of 30-cent ADA for every decision that we were making because that was the closest rough ADA price to what things were. Obviously, right now that has changed pretty dramatically. Um, so this is the question that we've kind of gone back and forth on. Lawrence calls it his financial whip, his financial work in progress, which is that we do know that most of the vendors who will do work in all of these processes will require dollars or yen or euro or pounds, not ADA. There are a couple of vendors who are willing to take ADA, basically no matter what, but for the most part, most of the vendors, that's not the case. So we will know that as if work is progressing, as it's expected to, that there's a certain amount of dollars and yen and whatever, just fiat, let's say, that's due on a monthly basis. And so if we have money from the Treasury that is in the Cardano Development Holdings Company, the CDH, then that money we only would need to sell what we would need for a period of time. So come the end of the year, if there's still funds there that haven't been spent, well, that's money that doesn't have to be pulled from the Treasury to continue the next year. Or optionally, if the DREPs say they could either say, don't pull any more funds out, use what you have until you've used it for your next year's ask, or they could say, return it to the Treasury because we do have that option as well. So that those options are both available, and it would be up to the DREPs to tell us what they'd want to do with any surplus.
I got it. Great. Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you in Argentina.
Oh, I can't wait. I'll see you there.
For sure.
Tex, you're up next.
All right. I believe that conversation spurred a few questions for me. If I can remember them in a speakable format, I will. Before I get to my direct question, I will just mention if anybody here is interested in hearing or seeing what the OSC's proposal is, I'm more than happy to present that. So if we get time or a dead space, let me know. But my question is related, specific to the buckets versus the committees. So I understand the original budget process was centered around these buckets, and there's now been a transition for committees to put forth what they are thinking. And without sounding terribly selfish, I'm just looking at the open source committee, and the consideration is that not everything the open source committee is going to do is going to fit into a core services or core technology type budget. And so, you know, are we still planning on doing something under a bucketed system, or are we actually going to refer to what the committees are presenting and get a committee by committee approval?
So thank you. And there's actually some interesting nuance there, and that's what I think it's going to be good to tease this out. So I appreciate the question. So the buckets still exist. The buckets are our direction. So for next year, the buckets will make a whole lot more sense when we get to it next year, where when you're looking for funding for a committee or for another MBO or for any organization within Cardano that wants some, the funding ask that they would be presenting has to fit in a bucket, right? So for next year, we need to develop our buckets through a process which we would have done this year if we had the time. But next year, and product is already doing some of the work toward that. The idea is we set these long-term goals, and based on these long-term goals, we create buckets of funding that we would do for the year, and then proposals go into those. Have to align with those buckets. So it's a both and rather than an either or. Uh, One of the ways that we were looking at doing it is that we're looking to separate the funds based on the buckets. So the idea would be, and again, these are just random numbers. So if we had a 10 million ADA budget, we would give 2 million to core services and 2 million to marketing, right? Something like that. Like you would break it out into different chunks uh, based on where we want to prioritize our spending. And that's a different conversation to have than what you would do to fill those buckets. And so that's where still committees, other MBOs, other organizations like Project Catalyst can bring their asks forward and put it in. This year we had to kind of do a bit of a hybrid just because we had no more than 6 months to develop, socialize, and deploy the process. We actually did it in under 4. Did it under 4, which is crazy. And so we kind of defaulted to buckets that looked an awful lot like what we'd spent money on in the past, either from our 3 founding entities or using funds from the Treasury in the past, and that's it. And so that's what we settled on as the initial buckets, always knowing that we were going to go through a process in 25 to align 26's budget buckets.
Great, thank you.
Sure. All right. I see Joe has a question, and if you have others to text that you want to bring up, we'll take Joe's, and then we can circle back to you on another question.
Thank you. How are you, Lloyd? It's good to see you. You've
Good.
been doing some major heavy lifting for us all. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Joe.
Questions I have are so first of all, what consideration has the the budget committee given to stablecoins and withdrawing the ADA and then using stablecoins? I know you've got a couple of organizations and some people to oversee the budget when you withdraw it, but it'd be nice to hear what considerations have been made about that. The second question is, again, considerations, and I know you've been up against it, but around languages, around communicating this budget out to the community. Obviously, it's awesome that you're doing this at this time of day because it makes it much easier for our communities down here to get involved. And then the third one was just a what if there is no constitution.
Okay.
So take those in whatever order you'd like and in whatever depth you'd like. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. All right, some good nuanced stuff tonight. It's like you know, an evening fireside chat here. I'm enjoying this, getting to go into these details. So, okay, so we'll start with stablecoin. Yes, we're talking about stablecoins. It's a fantastic way for us to convert and stay on chain, right? So we know that we would need a certain amount of we because of the WIP, the work in progress that Lawrence is talking about. We would know, well, we're going to need this much funding, you know, going forward. But let's say ADA is on a tear and it's doing really, really well. So we could sell enough ADA to be able to have a couple of months of that in the bank. But if we were to leave it in stable coins rather than pull it to dollars, we could react whichever way we needed to with that money all the way up to the point where we send it to the customer. And if we can get not customer, sorry, vendor, if we can get those vendors to accept those stable coins instead of the actual fiat, well, it's even better. Now we've gone all the way and we've stayed on chain with everything. So it's not 100% right now. There are some concerns about liquidity that we have to, Cardano's liquidity for their stablecoins right now is not stellar. It hopefully it is less of a problem as we move forward, but it is something we have to be considerate of right now. So yes, we're thinking about it. Yes, we're planning for it, but there are some limitations that we have to be very mindful of as we do it in the beginning. But hopefully, that would actually be the ideal. Would be, hey, I have to pay my rent, so I need to make sure I make enough to pay my rent every month as a vendor to you. So I will want my payments in stable coins. No problem. Right. Here you go. You got it. And you can do your stable coin out to whatever currency you need to pay your bills. So that would be the sort of, the perfect scenario for us. See, I want to move on to your let me move on to your second question about language, because that's actually a fairly straightforward one, and one I'm very proud of. We have an incredible team within Intersect and an incredible community within Intersect. So many of the folks who you already know as ambassadors or as translators already have already stepped up. They're already ready. They've already raised their hands. They're already like, just give it to us and we'll translate it right away. I being invited to speak at the Sri Lanka AMA that's coming up. Utah is going to be doing one for budget as soon as all of the committees have had a chance to put the budgets together. He's going to do a translation, and they're going to do one in the Japanese hub. So we've got people in Spanish, we've got Portuguese, we've got French, we've got all of these translators who are like raising their hands and saying, "Yep, as soon as it's ready, we'll translate it." So, like, I get goosebumps because it's like the community is just so freaking awesome here, and they just stand up and do this stuff. So we don't have to plan for it because they come to us and say, "Hey, let's do it." Um, so that's awesome. And then the third and final thing, but so what I keep having to say, these are the things I wake up, with night sweats and night terrors. Whenever Yeah, what if we don't get the Constitution? Well, first of all, we have the interim Constitution, and the interim Constitution can stay the interim Constitution for so long as it needs to. Although we have kind of a drop date. I don't even want to say drop dead. It's awful, but we have a date in roughly July of 2025 that the certificates that are signed by the interim constitutional committee would expire. The interim constitutional committee can follow the interim constitution. We could align a budget and only have the budget funding approved by the interim constitution. It is actually possible. Do we want to do that? No. We want to obviously complete the process. We want to have I believe it will be the Ploman hard fork. I know that it's been put out. So we will have the Ploman hard fork. Rest your soul, my friend. And then after that hard fork has completed, then we would go through the normal process, and you'd bring the budget forward and get treasury withdrawals all through the normal process. But it was made in such a way that the interim constitutional committee could in fact approve a budget and improve treasury withdrawal if they absolutely had to.
Thanks, Lloyd. That's awesome.
Thank you, Joe.
I remembered, I don't know if it was one of my questions that I had, but it's another one that I've somewhat become aware of, but let me ask it gently, if you will. Has there been any discussion around whether or not the entirety of the budget is going to be allowed to be pulled at once? Obviously, I know there's that net change limit, but I want to say I've heard some varying conversations, but I don't want to speak to what I've heard without hearing it from the source. So,
Sure. So this is still it's controversial, even though I don't think it should be controversial. I understand. Okay, I'll back it up even a little step further. I do understand and feel the concern from some of the DREP community that they don't want to make a decision, take a bunch of ADA and put it in somebody's hands and let them do with it without proving it out. I totally get it. I do. It of course makes sense. This is scary. It's our first go at this. The the issue that we have, and it's an interesting one, and it is definitely a human issue, is that you have these organizations who are doing work on Cardano and have been doing work on Cardano for years and years and years and years. And up till now, they've done that work not on chain effectively, right? They've done that. They've done all of this continuity work and this, building the next level of the core tooling and maintaining the core. They did all of this stuff, and they paid for it out of the money that was, the Genesis allocations, and then whatever other monies came to whatever of those founding entities, and then, so all this work's been ongoing. So it's very easy to see somebody coming at this process new and going, what do you mean you need all that ADA at once? Well, yeah, we need all that ADA at once. We have to sign contracts. These contracts are to complete work that will not be even all done this year, but we need to be able to guarantee with a contract that we're going to be able to pay the vendors and the suppliers, the work to do the work that they're going to do. As just putting an Intersect hat on, I'm not on the board, but if I was, the board has a fiduciary responsibility. How can the board be okay with approving contracts that they don't have the funding for? And so it is a controversial thing, but it shouldn't be. It should be a business as usual conversation. Yes, the chain's going to need to spend this much money this year to do these things. Here they are. And if the DREPs say that, yes, we want to do those things, then the DREPs approve the funding. We spend the ADA, and then we do everything in our power to spend as little of that ADA as possible, right? If the price goes up, we sell enough to handle the year and don't touch the rest of it on purpose because it's not necessary. And we just move forward, pay all the bills, build all of the things we're supposed to build, and then go to the DRAPs every month, honestly, with here's the update, monthly, and then get in person every quarter with here's our quarterly update, and you can see the progress of where we're going. So that's the perfect world. Will we be able to do other things? We'll make work whatever we have to make work. But, if we have to do a quarterly, one of the compromises I asked for was that if we really have to do quarterly, then we need to get 6 months up front. And then at the end of the first quarter, we need to be approving the third quarter, right? So that way, if we're doing quarterly, it needs to be on a rolling basis. We cannot face a financial cliff if we're gonna have to do that. My hope is that education prevails and the understanding of why the process needs to, should be the way that it's laid out makes the most sense for Cardano. It actually is the best scenario for Cardano as a whole to make an agreement on what we're going to do in a year and make an agreement on what we're going to spend, work toward that, and then monitor it carefully as we go through the year and keep making good decisions that are backed by data, science, peer review, etc., on what we should do next and continue doing those things. So I hope we get there, but we'll work with whichever of those options we are forced to.
Thank you.
All right. Joe's up next.
Hello again. I am looking for easy communications for community members regarding the various different budgets, and I wonder whether they have already been, and I've just not found it, been accumulated in one spot. So all the various different Intersect committees, rather than having to find each of their knowledge bases. Yeah, all of the budgets in one place somewhere. Is that already done and I've just not found it, or is that something that's happening?
It's happening. So it's partially done. So I started this week. We created a portal. There's one section under the budget committee's knowledge base, the 2020. It's actually right near the top. It says 2025 annual budget process. If you click that link, you'll see that the first couple of committees asks are already there. The remainder of them will be up early next week, Monday, Tuesday at the latest of next week. They'll all be up and running. And you'll see all of the different asks all in one place. We are trying to give all the committees a chance to actually have an AMA first, identify any serious issues prior to publishing for each committee. But we do have that, and it's going to be all in one spot. I'm actually going to do a bit.ly link specific to that one. And so that way we can socialize a bit.ly link that if anybody wants to go directly to it, they can share that one link.
And then the discussion about those budgets, because once they're all in one place, obviously you're going to get more attention, which means that you're going to get lots more lovely feedback.
Absolutely. So we're trying our best to be in all of the places for the conversations, right? So we're in X, we're in Reddit, we're in the Cardano forum. We're going to be in GovTool as well. So we will be in all the places where people are. Now, as far as how we consolidate that feedback, the best way I can tell you is that that the feedback consolidates to each committee, and each committee needs to make changes to their ask based on the feedback that they receive. And so it will continue to be that the consolidation around the budget itself in that portal is where that's the ultimate source of truth. That's where the conversation will have led to those changes, and then obviously the most positive arbiter of what it will be is what goes into the on-chain info action whenever we get to that point.
Awesome. And that info action, that'll be an info action that is lodged by Intersect.
We will lodge it, yes. We will bring that out, but not until we have had these conversations. And we're not expecting DREPs to approve something that they haven't had lots of time to digest and lots of time to discuss.
Fantastic.
Did I reach the end of the internet here? Are we out of questions to ask?
Oh God, no, there's endless questions to ask.
Please, Joe, go
Oh.
ahead. The stage is yours.
Cool. Okay, so questions that I keep getting asked is so and I know you've talked about this before, Lloyd, but it bears repeating so that I can share this again. If a group wanted to make an alternate request to what is coming out of the Intersect committees, how might they, could they, how would they do that?
So for this year, the best bet is to find the committee that's best aligned with you, because we've had all the committees, start to make it very obvious where you can submit something, because we've aligned the committees pretty well to the buckets this year, to keep things moving forward. And if you have a question, or if you just don't think you fit anywhere at all, come directly to budget and we will find out where you belong. And if it truly is like, oh, it just doesn't fit anywhere, we'll figure that out too. We haven't had anything come forward that just doesn't fit anywhere. Everything's been, oh, well, that's obviously you're going to need to go over here. That's open source, or that's TSC, or So we've been able to direct people where they need to be for now. But if something truly unique comes up that you just haven't planned for in any way, and we've got to find a place, we'll figure out a way to get that added into the process for 25, so that it can be presented to the DREMs. For 26, it's a lot easier, because that bucket allocation process, if you want, and I don't remember who did this, but they did a really good job of showing the nuance. If you have a really great idea, but you're not necessarily the one that's going to build it, then that time frame is the bucket allocation process. If you've got a really great idea on how to build that thing that's in the bucket, then that is actually after the budget is passed. So there are two different times to participate, right? One being aligning where we should go and what should be in the budget, and the other is going into the tendering process and bidding on the project that you want to work on. You can be in both. No, there's nothing stopping you from being in both. But that's an important distinction that I think everybody needs to understand, is that right now we're putting forth the ideas of the things we should build, not who's going to build them. That comes next.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Joe. Juan, go ahead.
Joe, great questions. I love it.
How are you, Yuan?
Yeah, how are you doing? Joy, I just think, will you walk us, or me, through the process after the DREPs do the approval? What will happen in terms of the budget? In terms of the actual withdrawal. So I guess, yeah, just in terms of timing too, because the idea will be to have that make those withdrawals at optimum price for the ADA. So how can you walk us through that, just to understand a little more?
Sure. So again, this one kind of depends on a couple things still. We still have to know the net change limit. if the net change limit that the DREPs approve isn't like over 73 epochs, for instance, if it's over a shorter time, which they can do, then we would have to withdraw, like we'd have to set an info action so that we could withdraw on time, no matter what, whatever funds are needed for that next time frame. So if we get a 73 epoch in net change limit, then we would want to put one one request in. But again, the DREPs may say no to that, and they may tell us we have to do quarterly draws or whatever, which is fine. Then we would put those draws as treasury actions, according to the way the DREPs tell us that we have to do it. So that's the first layer. The first layer is the uh, the receipt of the funds, right? And then once you have the funds, then we have a tendering process where we have all of this work that we know needs to be done. Um, you won't tender everything at once either. Like sometimes we'll get stuff approved that maybe won't be tendered for 4 months or 5 months out because if it has a dependency, right? Like I'll just like if we were going to do Laos. And in order to do Laos, we needed something to be done for the ledger first. Well, we're not going to tender Laos until we have the thing that needs to be done for the ledger, right? That kind of thing. I don't know. I'm not going into actual technical detail here. I'm just kind of what ifing. But that's the idea where if we had several things, and this is where in the last call I had with the DREPs, I'm like, if you really wanted to constrain us on the treasury withdrawals, that would be a better way of doing it, where it's like we've got 9 projects that are starting now that are a full year project. So let's write a treasury withdrawal for that. We get all of that money in one place, along with whatever is needed for the first, a project that's 3 months long and a project that's 5 months long. You know, that are all starting in January. Fine, we get all that money. And if we have these other 3 things that aren't starting until April, well, then we'll do another action in April to pay for all of that project, but not until it's ready to start. That kind of thing. That could be a much more reasonable cycle. But that cycle could also potentially mean that, oh, this is a 3-year commitment that we're doing. So we're going to withdraw all the funds for 3 years, or something like that. You see what I'm saying? So we have to grapple with where do we want the flexibility to be in the process? And that's really the questions that are still out. But let's go with our sort of ideal scenario. We agree that we're going to spend 300 million ADA in the year, whatever number. And we've put together all these great proposals and we are ready to start tendering. So we put in one info action, it gets approved. We put in one treasury withdrawal, it gets approved. The money moves over to the CDH. The money's in the CDH. The tendering process begins. The companies that want to do the work all bid on the work. The approvals are given. The companies begin the work. They meet their milestones. They get their payments. We gather every quarter and we show the work that's been done every quarter and the payments that are done. And all throughout that process, well, we've done the tendering, so we know we've got 14 companies that need, X amount of dollars, X amount of euros. And so we go, okay, well, here we are. We've got this amount of ADA in the treasury. ADA's at this price. We must have at least this much. But ADA's, and the treasury guys do this. This is what they do for a living. They're like, yes, ADA's at this price today, but it's probably on the uptrend now. So only take out the amount that you absolutely need to pay the bills right now so that we have more dry powder for later. Or, oh, we're getting to the point where we may be in a downtrend coming up here in the next month or two. So you better lock it in now and don't wait to do it. And those are decisions that have to be made by people who do the treasury work. We will have a working group that would do that. And that working group would the decisions that they would make would never give a day and time that payments are going to be made, because it's actually a security risk to do that, because someone could front run you and raise or lower the price to do whatever they wanted to do, to force your hand if they knew the actions you were going to take. So that's not something that can be super public. But what is public is that they will have made a decision, and then the committee would have followed through on the decision made by that. And when you go back and audit it, you can see that the advice was followed. So that's the transparent side of it, is after the fact, because of the front running concern, right? So you've got lots of, really, there are several processes here. They all kind of run simultaneously, but they have to, because you're aligning on a direction we need to go in. You're getting approval for that direction. You're aligning on how to spend, and then you're getting approval on the spend, and then you're tendering to get actual people to do the work. And then you see what I'm saying? It's just this ongoing cycle, and every layer has you know, another process, another piece that has to be dealt with. No one person can do this. This is always going to take groups of people working in collaboration to get this done.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, right. Thank you for that. It's like I never repeat the question, but I just need clarity. This is me. Now, as far as the outing, how that will be done, how that will be taking place.
Auditing is so we're going to have this another working group that we have to have. We're going to have a working group that will determine auditors. Now they have to come from, we have a couple of different types of audits that have to be done. There will be financial audits that have to be done. There'll be technical audits that have to be done. There will be potentially legal audits that have to be done, right? There will be different audits for different parts of the process. The regulatory audits, there will be different ones that require different expertise and different types of auditors. Some can come directly from the community. In other words, we could literally just, hey, if you have this expertise, we can hire you to do it. Other things may require us to either get a Big Four, or some other accounting firm, maybe not necessarily Big Four, but just a well-regarded external accounting firm that will have to do some portions of the audit, just because that's legal requirements that we have to make things happen. And so there will be an auditing working group whose entire purpose will be to find and select auditors for different work, and making sure that no one that's auditing work actually was delivering any of the work that they're auditing, right? There has to be a complete separation between those two. And so and some of that auditing takes place within the other committees. Like the technical audits will actually take place inside of TSC. We won't participate in that from budget. We would only audit their financial side, right? It's not our job to deal with the technical audits. So what they're doing, and they've been doing it all of 24, so they do have some experience with it, is that when one company turns in code, a different company is selected to come in and audit that code from our list of preferred vendors. So they're already doing it, which is very good. We will be setting that same kind of process up for financial audits, where we'll be ensuring that whoever the financial auditor is has absolutely no ties to the companies that are receiving the funds, so that the audits can be trusted.
Got it. Great. Yeah, thank you. The last question is, what will be the last time? I mean, the deadline that we have to submit proposals. The deadline, the latest time. When will that be?
So for 2025, as I've told everybody, we have to give everybody grace on every side of this puzzle. So each of the committees has put out some direction or another. It could be as simple as email us, or it could be as complex as a actual form and an actual full triage process like the TSC has. So there's a pretty wide array there, but there are still proposals coming in. Recently, the Rare Evo team put a proposal forward. Recently, the Cardano Foundation put a proposal forward. That's fine. It's okay for now that we're still taking proposals. Um, we want the DREPs to have a feel for the depth and breadth of what the asks should look like so that they can make reasonable decisions. What I would say is that as we approach the Plum and hard fork, we're going to at that point have to be done. We're going to have to say we can't take any other new information. We have to start narrowing to what we're going to do. Because once the Plum and hard fork happens, we really must fund the operations of this chain in 2025. And it's a minimum of a 6-week process to have the info action, because info action, unlike all the other actions, the info action must do its full 6 weeks before it is considered finalized. All the other types of actions, as soon as you reach the threshold and a epoch turnover happens, it goes on chain instantly. The only action that's not like that is the info action. So we have a minimum of 6 weeks that we have to do the info action for the budget, and then we can do the treasury withdrawal following that. So yeah, so it's a
Super.
challenge.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's been a lot of, it's unbelievable time. It is unbelievable to be alive in this time. Oh yeah.
I've said it a few times lately. This is the greatest challenge of my life so far. It truly is, without question.
And we are so fortunate to be part of this. I mean, I just
Yes, we are.
say it every day. Great.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Joy.
Right now. Yeah, thank you, Juan. I'm cognizant of time. We got about 3 minutes left, Joe. I do need to call it a night here fairly soon. So, but I am happy to take one final question before we call it a night.
I appreciate that, Lloyd, and yeah, echo those thoughts. One, it is an amazing time to be alive. Okay, so maybe this question could be held over to another space. I don't know, because I don't think maybe it is an easy one. It's just following on for some of those more kind of grunty questions that Juan asked just before. So this is around dispute resolution. Something that doesn't get a lot of attention. Interestingly, at Alterai's constitutional workshop, it was one of the questions that we addressed from the Constitution. It was one of the questions that everybody wanted to address, because we had about 3 lawyers in the room who said you shouldn't have a constitution unless you have organized a dispute resolution process, because that's the first thing that's going to cause you issues if you don't have one.
Yeah, and I'm happy to say that that is actually in the current draft of the Constitution that's going to Buenos Aires. That in the budget process, it calls for dispute resolution as a part of it, which is perfect. And I will tell you that we had aligned the budget process from the beginning. That this is again why we want to have a single annual budget, and we wanted to have everyone who would receive funds from the annual budget to go through this kind of tendering process, because when you do that, you now have introduced a contract. So if you want to participate in Cardano, you can do so permissionlessly. There's nothing ever stopping you. But if you want to receive funds from the Treasury and you want to perform work for Cardano with funds that belong to Cardano, to the community, the ecosystem, then what you do is you sign a contract. And in that contract is a dispute resolution clause. Now, we don't have to have a single venue, and we don't intend to. So every single contract can have different venues negotiated. There will be a list of them that are appropriate, and you can take an appropriate venue for for your dispute resolution. So it's an interesting thing. It's that this is where we're a hybrid. We're not a corporation and we're not a nation state. We're something in between. And so it is a very interesting, and this one could probably go an hour, Joe. It honestly probably could. But
It
but
it
the
is.
short answer is that it's built into the process, and everyone who wants funds from the Treasury should be signing a contract. And in fact, now if this Constitution passes, it'll be mandated that they'll have a contract with dispute resolution.
Great. It's a good first step. I
think so.
think that maybe for the whānau, for the family here in Aotearoa, the ecosystem here in Aotearoa, it's a particularly pointy subject where signing the contract isn't even enough. I don't know whether you're aware, there's been a huge activation here in Aotearoa this week because of a contract that was signed 184 years ago, and essentially was still fighting for it to be honored. So
Exactly. I
dispute
have followed it.
resolution
Yeah.
is very high on the agenda, and we don't want to be, creating a new system based on Cardano without Cardano having a very, very clear process around this kind of area, because waiting 184 years and still not having a contract honored, believe me, has taken our whānau to the edge of their patience, as you would have seen this week.
I have seen it. I'm watching with interest, and I'm hoping the best outcome for that. It is incredible to think that it wouldn't be honored at this point. Like you would think there'd be some kind of precedent, but we're seeing laws being overturned all the time right now that, despite precedent, and you're right. It's like, how do we, how do we keep right being right?
Mhm.
I it's a long conversation and one we'll have to keep having. But you're right. I hope this first step will work for us with these, primarily commercial contracts. But longer term, and these are the kind of really philosophical questions we've had. Longer term, what does this look like? Do we develop our own, kind of arbitration processes, our own kind of internal, you know,
Uh-huh.
processes where we voluntarily submit to them and then honor the outcomes, because the voluntary submission is the critical part to keeping the blockchain being what it is. So this is
All
where,
about social contracts, right?
yes, yes. So, but on that note, I think this is a great place to wrap it up for the evening. You guys gave me some incredible questions tonight. I did record this session, so we will get it posted. And I appreciate each and every one of you for your time tonight, and I appreciate the incredible questions, and look forward to more discussions as we move forward. And thank you all for your time tonight, and have a great evening.
See you in Argentina.